In Brazil, multiple police raids kill at least 45 drug dealers.
Operatives seize about 385 kilograms of narcotics, as well as firearms used by the drug gangs. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagaw Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Marcos meets former President Rodrigo Duterte to discuss diplomatic affairs and appointments. Department of Budget and Management justifies Marcos administration's increased allocation for foreign trips. PU tie dumps Move Forward Party to create a new coalition government. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen decries Fitch credit downgrade. And Californians urge Taylor Swift to postpone Eras tour. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. emphasizes the importance of the creative industry to the Philippines economy, vowing to promote and support them in this post-pandemic era.
As we remain steadfast in improving the environment and condition for our workers in all sectors, I urge you all to continue to take the lead through your meaningful initiatives.
He underscores the many achievements and benefits that the creative industry brings to the Philippines in terms of economy, culture, and entertainment. The president mentions the use of new technologies that have become available will be able to bring better opportunities to local talents and make our local creative industry more attractive to the international market. President Marcos Jr. congratulates the new officers during their oath-taking for the katipunan ng mga artistang Pilipino sa pelikula at telebisyon.
I congratulate all of you, and I thank you for your desire to create a better industry that future generations can appreciate, enjoy, and be proud of.
Okay. Malacanang Palace, as Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri eyes on appointing Duterte as a special envoy to China. Queenie Noble tells us more.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. warmly welcomes former President Duterte alongside Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin and other top officials. They discuss Duterte's recent meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Ex-President Duterte also gave some good pieces of advice to the incumbent President Marcos Jr., who hopes that the meeting with Xi will boost ties between the two countries. Senator Alan Peter Cayetano recently suggested the appointment of the former president as a special envoy to China, especially since Duterte has gained the trust and respect of the Chinese government. Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri concurs with Cayetano and emphasizes the importance of diplomacy with close allies of the Philippines. Queenie Noble for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The House of Representatives approved 2 legislative bills to help the country combat the current energy crisis. Vin Pasqua has the details.
The House of Representatives approved 2 priority bills by the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council to develop the Philippines downstream natural gas industry. The Philippine Downstream Natural Gas Industry Development Act will transfer the majority of power generation from coal to natural gas. House Speaker Martin Romualdez highlights natural gas as an environment-friendly, safe, and cost-effective source of energy. The Act's policies promote and regulate conversion of equipment and facilities from using and extracting fossil fuel to natural gas. The Department of Energy is tasked to supervise and monitor the development of the natural gas industry. to establish a system for the collection and development of natural capital accounts. The House also approved the Philippine Ecosystem and Natural Capital Accounting System House Bill. The Philippine Statistics Authority will handle the accounts for the progressive integration in macroeconomic indicators. Vin Pascua, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Bureau of the Treasury allots 1.9 trillion pesos to compensate debts from domestic and international creditors. Majority of the debt payments allocated to local creditors are at 77.1% for a total of 1.474 trillion pesos. This shows an 18% increase from the 1.246 trillion pesos this year. The state treasury will use 1.003 trillion pesos for principal amortization and the remaining 470.68 billion pesos to cover the interest payments. The government also allocated a total of 437.61 billion pesos to repay foreign creditors, a 43% increase from the 305.68 billion pesos this year. Meanwhile, the country registered a total debt payment of 819.53 billion pesos, doubled compared to the 414.0 or 07 billion pesos last year. The Marcos administration expects that the total outstanding debt will increase to 15.842 trillion pesos by the end of 2024. The Marcos administration is pushing for a 9.2 billion pesos worth of confidential and intelligence funds for 2024. JD Mahinay reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is seeking to secure a total of 9.2 billion pesos in confidential and intelligence funds for the following year. According to Budget Chief Amena Pangandaman, the proposed 2024 national budget has reserved 4.3 billion pesos for confidential funds, while 4.9 billion pesos were allotted for intelligence. Pangandaman assures that there are guidelines set from the Commission on Audit for the proper use of the said intel funds. She also confirms that there is a 120 million peso increase that will cover cyber programs spearheaded by the Department of Information and Communications Technology. This is to follow the country's drive towards digitalization. The Department of Budget and Management recently submitted the proposed trillion-worth national budget to the House of Representatives, as mandated by the Philippine Constitution. JD Mahinay reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, vows to explore possible diplomatic actions concerning the West Philippine Sea. The agency notes that the actions are either bilateral or multilateral to ensure that these will promote the country's interests and bring optimal benefits for the nation. This is after the Senate adopted Resolution number 718, tapping the Philippine government to take appropriate actions in securing the country's sovereign rights over its exclusive economic zone. The measure also calls on China to stop its illicit activities pursuant to the United Nations Convention for the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, as well as the 2016 arbitral ruling on the South China Sea. Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. reiterates the importance of the United Nations Convention for the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, following the Japan-Philippines Parliamentary Friendship League courtesy call. With Japan's support, Department of Defense spokesperson Arsenio Andolong emphasizes safeguarding the Philippines' maritime domain, especially the West Philippine Sea. Andolong says that the Defense Secretary looks forward to Japan's further support in bolstering the country's defense equipment and technology. The Department of Foreign Affairs welcomes the United Nations General Assembly resolution reaffirming the Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration, or PCA's importance in dispute settlement. Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo emphasizes the rule of law in preserving international order, citing the co-sponsorship of the Philippines in the resolution commemorating the 125th anniversary of the PCA. The PCA issued the arbitral ruling in 2016 denying China's 9-dash line expansion in the West Philippine Sea. The Department of Budget and Management clarifies that the 58% increase in budget allocation for President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s foreign trips would help promote the Philippines as an investment destination for other countries. Budget Chief Amena Pangandaman justifies that the President asked Congress to allot 1.408 billion pesos for foreign missions and state visits in 2014 or 2024. During the President's second State of the Nation address, he believes that one of his goals is to bring the country back on the map as an investment hub. The Budget Chief notes that the President and the top financial officials traveled abroad to promote the Philippines as an attractive investment destination. The President has already made 12 state trips, twice in Indonesia, Singapore, and the United States since June 30, 2022. Coming up, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu addresses his country's issues. PUTAI breaks away from Move Forward Party to form a new political bloc. And Helsinki gets into a political row with Kyiv. Please stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will be back.
Usapang OPM noon at ngayon. Welcome, Mr. Tats Faustino.
At hindi magbabago.
At nag-iisang pop diva, Miss Ku Ledesma.
This feeling seems to grow more every day. Nasa puso dapat ng Pilipino to love what is Filipino, but at the same time, kailangan maging quality.
Originality is very important. Hindi yung gaya na lang tayo ng gaya.
Masasabi kong lubos ang pagtangkilik ng mga Pilipino sa OPM noon. Kamusta naman kaya ang OPM ngayon? Mag-reality check tayo. Kasi usually, yung ginagamit ng cupcake, cupcake, ganun.
Sinigang, pwedeng wala siya.
Ano?
Go! yun, doon nagsimula yung friendship. So until now, kaya beshi-beshi na kami. So for like 21
Dami na
years
din namin
na.
pinagdaanan.
Oo.
Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw.
Ang pinakahihintay na pagbabalik ng pinakamasaya at pinakamahusay na sports competition ng bansa ay narito na. Mahigit 10,000 batang atletang Pilipino mula sa 17 regions ang maglalaban-laban upang ipakita ang galing ng mga batang malakas para sa bansang matatag. Palarong Pambansa 2023 Marikina. Panoorin ang mga palaro August 1 to 8, Lunes hanggang Biyernes, 2 p.m. at 12 noon, Sabado at Linggo, dito sa Net25. Brought to you by Media Partners. Net25, DZEC, Radyo Agila, Eagle FM 95.5, Out-of-Home Advertising Association of the Philippines, Strong Media Advertising Solutions, Globaltronics Incorporated, Mega Mobile, Manila Bulletin, Philippine Star, The Manila Times, and Manila Standard.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Storm Patricia's strong waves hit the northwestern town of Iliat-Vilaine in Brittany, France during a high tide. The municipality issued a traffic ban on 2 harbors. One of the popular port tourist destinations took measures to prohibit cyclists, motorized vehicles, and people from walking near the sea barrier. Some parks and gardens in the city were also closed until Thursday due to bad weather conditions. In Coimper, the municipal government warned the public about the risk of floods in the sectors of Locmaria, Cap Horn, and the city center. They also added anti-flooded barriers and sandbags in business establishments and houses that are on the ground floor and flood-prone areas.
Amnesty International says extensive war crimes are being committed by both sides in the conflict raging in Sudan since April this year. Julian Bukayan has more details.
The Britain-based human rights group Amnesty International says in a report that the crimes committed by the warring parties include sexual violence against girls as young as 12, plus the indiscriminate targeting of civilians. The war is between 2 feuding generals, regular Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former deputy, the Parliamentary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF commander Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo. Amnesty Secretary General Agnes Callamard says civilians throughout Sudan are suffering unimaginable horror every single day. This as the RSF and Sudanese armed forces recklessly vie for control of territory. She calls on the RSF and SAF, as well as their affiliated armed groups, to end targeting civilians and guarantee safe passage for those seeking safety. The NGO, ACLED, says that the fighting has killed more than 3,900 people. The UN says that it has displaced more than 3.3 million. The fighting is concentrated in Khartoum and the western region of Darfur. Amnesty says men, women, and children in densely populated residential neighborhoods have been caught in the frequent crossfire. It says scores of women and girls have been subjected to sexual violence, including rape. Some are held for days in conditions of sexual slavery. In most of the cases documented by Amnesty International, survivors say that the perpetrators were fighters of the RSF or its Arab militia allies. Julian Bukayan from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
General Abdurrahman Etiani declares that Niger will not bow down to the threats and pressures the West imposes on them, criticizing the economic sanctions on them as inhumane and illegal.
Conseil national pour la sauvegarde de la patrie rejette en bloc ces sanctions et refuse de céder à toute menace et d'où qu'elles viennent. Nous refusons toute ingérence dans les affaires intérieures du Niger et rejetons la prétention chez les uns et les autres de punir pour l'exemple le Conseil national pour la sauvegarde de la patrie.
Tiani warns and consoles the Nigerian people of difficult times ahead and that the new government of Niger rejects any interference in their internal affairs. The military governments in Mali and Burkina Faso have declared their support for the Niger coup, citing an end to the colonizers from the West, such as France. Both Mali and Burkina Faso have said that any foreign interference in Niger would be a declaration of war to them as well. Russia warns the West that threats of military intervention, like the one made by the Economic Community of West African States, will not ease tensions and only heighten the already tense situation.
Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu is met with large protests in major cities as labor unions take action against economic reforms that resulted in an astronomical increase in living costs. Hundreds of protesters marched to the capital of Abuja, the oil-producing state of Bayelsa, and the northern cities of Kano and Kaduna. The Nigerian Labour Congress criticized the fuel subsidy removal as hasty with no thought-out plan to cushion the effects on workers and Nigerians overall. President Tinubu met with the union leaders to discuss the subsidy removal, with the leaders hoping to find a permanent solution to the price hikes in transportation, goods and services, among others. Tinubu's administration previously announced a $652 million package funding for mass transit buses and cheap loans to farmers and small businesses. But unions were unimpressed and still opted to begin the protests.
The United States Department of State ordered a partial evacuation of its embassy staff and their families in Niger. The order came after President Mohamed Bazoum was deposed during a coup last July 26. U.S. Bureau of Consular Affairs issued a travel advisory placing Niger under level 4, do not travel, the highest level the country may impose due to life-threatening risks such as ongoing wars and rebellions. The advisory also stated that the U.S. Embassy in Niamey has temporarily reduced its personnel, suspending routine services, and is only able to provide emergency assistance to U.S. citizens in the country. This has totaled Washington's number of countries with travel advisory level 4 to 20, Russian and Ukraine among those included. Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced via social media platform X that he spoke with Bazoum for the second time. He reiterated that the safety and security of President Bazoum and his family are paramount, and the U.S. is committed to restoring Niger's democratically elected government.
Indonesia has sent emergency aid to its easternmost province of Papua, where a drought killed 6 people, including a baby, and left thousands without water since June. Disaster officials blame the El Niño weather phenomenon and rise in global temperatures for the drought and extreme cold weather in the worst-hit Phuket Regency and central Papua. A total of 17.1 tons of aid was sent to the impoverished region, including thousands of packets of instant food and hundreds of tents and blankets. Indonesia's National Disaster Mitigation Agency said that the drought has affected more than 7,500 people. The United Nations has warned the world to prepare for the prolonged effects of El Niño, which occurs at an average of 2 to 7 years, with episodes that typically last 9 to 12 months.
Pheu Thai Party announced that it would form a new coalition that does not include the election winner, the Move Forward Party, or MFP, in order to smoothen the path for Pheu Thai candidate Srettha Thavisin, or Thavisin, when Parliament convenes to elect a Prime Minister.
พรรคเพื่อไทยได้ปรึกษาหารือกับพรรคก้าวไกลร่วมมือและเดินหน้าจัดตั้งรัฐบาลพรรคร่วมใหม่เสนอชื่อนายเศรษฐาทวีสินแคนดิเดตนายกรัฐมนตรีของพรรคเพื่อไทยดำรงตำแหน่งนายกรัฐมนตรี
The division could be seen as Pheu Thai's apprehension towards MFP wanting to amend Article 112 or the lèse-majesté law, which prevents any dissent against the crown or Thailand's long-standing monarchy. Southeast Asia's second-largest economy has been in political limbo since the poll, in which the progressive Move Forward emerged as the largest party, closely followed by the populist Pheu Thai Party. Move Forward took the lead in forming the next government after the May 14 election, in which many voters rejected the military and a military-backed government and opted for the younger, more populist parties instead. Pita Limjaroenrat tried twice to get voted in as prime minister by parliament, which conservative opponents and a military-appointed upper house senate subsequently blocked.
พรรคเพื่อไทยและนายเศรษฐาทวีสินขอยืนยันชัดเจนว่าเราจะไม่สนับสนุนการแก้ไขมาตรา 112 และการจัดตั้งรัฐบาลใหม่จะไม่มีพรรคก้าวไกลอยู่ในพรรคร่วม
The two parties were the main players in an 8-party alliance formed by the MFP in its bid to start a new government. MFP has 151 House seats and Pheu Thai 141, their alliance constituting 312 of the 500 seats. Now, Pheu Thai Deputy Leader Phomtham Wechayachai said a government led by his party would not support amending Article 112, but would focus on solving economic and political problems.
พรรคเพื่อไทยจะใช้ความพยายามรวบรวมเสียงให้เพียงพอต่อการจัดตั้งรัฐบาลอย่างเหมาะสมและพรรคก้าวไกลจะทำหน้าที่เป็นฝ่ายค้านและยืนยันจะทำงานการเมืองในมิติใหม่ที่จะเป็นประโยชน์ต่อประเทศชาติและพี่น้องประชาชนใน
Russian President Vladimir Putin states that Moscow is ready to renew the Black Sea grain deal once the West gives a favorable deal to Russia's grain exports. President Putin says that while prices go up in the global market, Russia, as the leader in wheat exports, will share the income with the poorest nations, including free deliveries of grain within 3 to 4 months. Russian drones continue to attack Ukrainian ports and grain storage facilities. As Ukraine threatens to attack Russian soil, including drone attacks in Moscow, militia groups in Russia are provided weapons to ward off any attacks, supporting the armed forces and regional police. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva states that his country is working a peace treaty in Ukraine, but also says that both Russia and Ukraine are still not ready for peace.
Poland is set to deploy more troops at its border with Belarus after they accused Minsk of violating its airspace. Rising tensions between the NATO member and Kremlin's closest ally have been more commonplace due to recent progressions. Warsaw claims that 2 Belarusian helicopters allegedly violated the Polish airspace during training exercises, a claim which the Belarusian Defense Ministry vehemently denies. These advancements come during a time of increased activity near the Suwalki Gap corridor, which is a thin strip of land located between Poland and Lithuania. Wagner forces have apparently been moving toward the corridor in order to establish a foothold for multiple nations.
Дают опыт, и вдруг слышу, недавно взбесилась Польша, что якобы сюда идет какой-то отряд, аж 100 человек. Никаких отрядов ЧВК «Вагнер» 100 человек сюда не перемещались. А если перемещались, только для того, чтобы передать боевой опыт бригаде, которая сосредоточена в Бресте и в Гродно. Я должен учить своих военных.
Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko brokered a deal to cap Wagner's failed rebellion against Moscow, after which thousands of mercenary fighters were reportedly sent to his country. Minsk had informed Warsaw about the exercise, but an unprecedented border crossing had caused Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak to order more troops and combat helicopters along the border.
Друзей, они совершенно бесплатно, хоть они же наемники, они же за деньги везде и воевали, и работали, бесплатно помогают нам, передают опыт, и вдруг, если честно, я хочу сохранить это подразделение. Это настоящие бойцы, прошедшие через войну.
A foreign policy advisor to Poland's president said Ukraine should show more appreciation for their support in its war with Russia, leading to Kyiv admonishing the advisor. Ukraine and Poland have been firm allies since the start of the Ukraine war, but cracks are starting to show with multiple criticisms being thrown at each other since then. Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ole Nikolenko rebukes the Polish foreign policy advisor's comments about Ukraine's ungratefulness, calling them untrue and unacceptable. Polish Deputy Foreign Minister Paweł Labiącki, in turn, says that there are many issues on which Poland and Ukraine cannot agree on. 5 countries in the European Union, including Poland, previously banned imports of Ukrainian wheat, maize, and other goods, citing defense on Polish farmers as the primary reason. Ukraine has since called this move hostile, especially with the Polish Prime Minister saying that they would not lift the ban even if the EU did not agree.
President Nicolas Maduro says that Venezuela officially applies to join BRICS during his regular television program. Maduro hopes that the request will be positively valued by BRICS members. Venezuela notes that Caracas is willing to contribute to the emerging group as it possesses massive energy reserves. This coming August 22 to 24, the 5-member bloc is due to hold a summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. The conference involves the consideration of official membership applications from a number of countries.
Colombian president's son, Nicolas Petro, is charged with money laundering and illicit enrichment after his ex-wife confesses that Petro engaged in meetings with a convicted drug trafficker. Petro's ex-wife, Daisuris Vasquez, states that she was present in meetings where Nicolas Petro received $150 million in donations from a politician who was once convicted of drug trafficking. The money was a contribution to Petro's father's 2022 presidential campaign, but Petro allegedly pocketed the sizable cash infusion. Petro previously pleaded innocent to the charges, but relented toward the end of the hearing, changing his stance to collaborating with the prosecutors. The prosecutors also accused Vasquez of aiding Petro in his money laundering scheme, placing both of them under arrest. United States Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says a U.S. credit downgrade by Fitch is entirely unwarranted. Yellen pushes back against a second-ever decrease by a major ratings agency following repeated debt limit standoffs in Washington. Anna Cui has more.
Janet Yellen's remarks come a day after the world's biggest economy loses its top-tier credit rating. This as Fitch lowers it a notch from AAA to AA+, drawing fiery disapproval from the White House and Treasury. Fitch Ratings says the downgrade is on the back of the U.S. growing federal debt burden and an erosion of governance resulting in multiple gridlocks over the debt ceiling. Yellen says, however, that Fitch's decision is puzzling in light of the economic strength seen in the U.S. Yellen stresses that fiscal responsibility is a priority for herself and President Joe Biden. She cites the country's economic bounce back from the pandemic with a robust jobs market and cooling inflation.
Fitch's decision is puzzling in light of the economic strength we see in the United States. I strongly disagree with Fitch's decision, and I believe it is entirely unwarranted. Its flawed assessment is based on outdated data and fails to reflect improvements across a range of indicators, including those related to governance.
Markets slumped following the Fitch downgrade, with bourses in Asia, Europe, and the United States tumbling, even as analysts say they did not forecast long-term implications. Anna Cui from Matanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, Scottish court approves extradition of U.S. fugitive Nicholas Rossi. New York City Mayor Eric Adams seeks help to tackle the migrant influx. And Brazilian President Lula da Silva urges the world to help protect the Amazon rainforest. Matanang Agila International will be back with more global news. Stay tuned.
Ano pangalan mo? Vic po. Vic po. Ano mo si Fernando po? Wala ho. Sumunod ka sa akin ha, sa presinto ha. Jen, wala akong gasolina ito eh. Wala ba? Wala ho. Ay, tulak mo na lang hanggang presinto. Meron pala ho. Alam ko, meron pa eh.
Baka discover siya na yung mga hinto ba, doon na lamang sa likod ng panty niya nililimas. Naglulusutan pang gano'n sa nito eh.
Ngayong linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali. Dito lang sa Net 25.
And I'm PJ. Tara, samahan niyo kami. Listen to our school's podcast. At pag-usapan natin ang mga issues na mahalaga para sa ating mga teenagers. Let's create art together in... Dito lang sa Net 25.
The National Gallery of Australia, or NGA, returns the 3 Cambodian bronze sculptures from the 9th and 10th centuries after they were found to be stolen. Both countries carried out a long investigation to determine the origin of the artifacts. Officials from Cambodia welcomed the historic event as an important step against past injustices in their country. These 3 sculptures originally came from Champa Kingdom and were dug up in field of the East Cambodia in 1994. National Museum of Australia said that they purchased the sculptures in 2011 for about $2.3 million or 1.18 million euros from British artifact smuggler Douglas Latchford. Latchford died in 2020 and has been implicated in various illegal trades of artifacts since 2016. His daughter, Nawapan Kriangsak, helped researchers from NGA and the Cambodia Ministry of Culture and Fine Arts to return the goods.
An Irish far-right party is facing a potential investigation into its funding after the theft of 400,000 euros in gold bars from its Dublin vault. National Party leader Justin Barrett said that the bars were taken from a safe at his party storage area in Dublin, where police have recovered the gold and were seeking its ownership. It has raised questions somehow about how the National Party is funded, where there has been fresh scrutiny of the National Party's finances since the revelations. Reports say that the party owns just a small fraction of the gold, with senior party members owning the rest. Councillor Emma Blaine has asked the Standards and Public Office Regulator to investigate reports that the National Party has not filed accounts for several years nor explained funding sources. Barrett explained, meanwhile, that the party held the main part of its reserves in gold in case of a collapse in the value of the euro and other currencies. The party is yet to give comments.
A court in Scotland has approved the extradition of United States fugitive Nicholas Rossi. Rossi allegedly faked his own death to escape rape charges in Utah. In a hearing at Edinburgh Sheriff Court, Sheriff Norman McFadyen ruled Rossi can be extradited and that he will now send the case to Scottish ministers to make the final decision. Nicholas Rossi was arrested in 2021 after checking himself into a hospital in Glasgow with COVID-19, where he was served an Interpol notice. Before fleeing to Scotland, it is alleged that Rossi faked his own death in the United States, where he faces accusations of raping and sexually assaulting a woman in Utah in 2008. Medical staff and police were able to identify him by comparing his tattoos with pictures of Rossi on the wanted notice and fingerprints. The suspect claimed he had been tattooed while comatose in hospital and that his fingerprints had been meddled with. He also insists that he is an Irish orphan called Arthur Knight. Rossi is claiming various psychiatric ailments, but McFadyen said he was unable to provide any evidence.
58 arrested and at least 45 drug dealers were killed in police raids targeting drug gangs in 3 Brazilian states. At least 10 gang members were killed in a shootout in Rio de Janeiro, 16 during clashes in a 5-day police raid in Sao Paulo, and 19 in the northeastern state of Bahia. Police found 385 kilograms of narcotics, along with guns used and stored by the drug gangs.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams seeks help as the city has reached maximum capacity for seeking migrants. Dozens of asylum seekers from West Africa have been sleeping on sidewalks outside a hotel while waiting to be processed at a center, following perilous journeys fleeing violence and poverty. Others seeking temporary accommodation were from Senegal, where they had slept on cardboards in storefronts for 5 days waiting to be accommodated. They are seeking shelter in the Big Apple 2 weeks after Mayor Eric Adams said the city had no more space.
We need help. We need help, and it's not going to get any better. From this moment on, it's downhill. There is no more room. I was at the Roosevelt on Saturday, and I went there on Sunday. Lined up around the block, hurting the businesses there. This is not going to get better.
Since April last year, more than 93,000 migrants, mostly from Central and South America, have arrived in New York, which is required by law to offer free housing to anyone who requests it. Adams met with federal authorities to try to find a solution that includes more border controls, a state of emergency, and federal aid to deal with the immigration wave. New York City has long been a sanctuary city for migrants, but Adams has been gradually trying to restrict the number of new arrivals. His administration gives priority to families with young children, while single men will have to reapply for shelter after 60 days. A new report from 2 Latin America-focused nonprofit organizations says United States Border Police persistently commit human rights abuses without accountability in their handling of migrants at the frontier with Mexico. Jane Kathleen Gregorio reports.
A report from the Washington Office on Latin America, or WOLA, and the Kino Border Initiative, or KBI, points to deaths in custody amid unclear circumstances. It also mentions abusive language, the denial of food, and the separation of families by border agents. The report says Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, has a persistent problem of human rights abuse without accountability. CBP is the federal government's largest civilian law enforcement agency. Since 2020, WOLA and KBI have tallied 13 deaths where Border Patrol's agents used force. They say these deaths were under circumstances in which it is unclear whether they faced an imminent threat or failed to prevent the death of an individual in custody. In a section detailing how formal complaints to CBP often fail to be resolved, KBI tallied 78 complaints filed between 2020 and 2022. Of these, just 5% led to either policy recommendations or discipline recommended for the agent in question. Many of the alleged abuses occur when migrants are in custody after turning themselves into authorities or being intercepted. Migrants who arrive in the U.S. without the necessary documentation are supposed to be held in CBP facilities. They are held there for up to 72 hours while their cases are processed. In reality, however, the NGOs say some stay for a week or more in what they describe as unsanitary conditions. While family separation is less common now than before, the report says it still occurs. Jane Kathleen Gregorio from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A fire burning in the Mojave National Preserve in California continues to burn. Conditions make it harder for firefighters to control the blaze. Macy Membrere has more.
Fire whirls, sometimes referred to as fire tornadoes, are creating dangerous conditions for firefighters trying to put out California's largest fire of the year. The fire, dubbed the York Fire, has been burning since July 28th. According to the National Park Service, as of Tuesday, it has consumed more than 80,000 acres or more than 32,000 hectares. As of this report, it is only 23% contained. The massive fire is burning in the Mojave National Preserve in the southeastern region of California. It is crossed into parts of Nevada as well and continues to grow to the northeast. Temperatures in the area are exceeding 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 Celsius with high winds. Firefighters are hoping expected rainstorms would help them in fighting the inferno. In Sacramento, California, Macy Membreri for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says the world must help Brazil protect the Amazon, which is believed to be a key buffer against climate change. This comes ahead of an upcoming summit on the world's biggest rainforest next week. Bernadette Raguini has the details.
Days before a summit of leaders with territory in the sprawling Amazon, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says they have a responsibility to convince the world that investing is cheap if it is a matter of saving the rainforest. Lula says the world needs to help Brazil preserve and develop the Amazon. Next week's summit in the Brazilian city of Belém will be about developing policies to protect the rainforest, which is being badly damaged by deforestation. It will be the first meeting of the 8-member Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization since 2009. Deforestation in Brazil's 60% share of the Amazon fell by 33.6% year on year from January to June. This during the first 6 months of Lula's term. The destruction of the rainforest had surged under his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro presided over an increase of more than 75% in annual deforestation against the previous decade. Lula says he plans to work with other Amazon basin leaders to share research on the region's biodiversity. Also, to seek ways to enable people there to work without destroying the fragile ecosystem. Bernadette Regini for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, SpaceX launches a new satellite into orbit. Somalia fields an unqualified runner. And California urges Taylor Swift to postpone her Eras tour. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Bank of England poised to raise UK interest rates. Economists think that a 0.25 percentage point rise to 5.25% is the most likely outcome, but there are concerns about the impact of rising rates on many households. From London, England, Ryan Florentino has a report.
The Bank of England is set to raise its key interest rates for a 14th time in a row, as UK inflation stays high, adding to a cost of living crisis. The BOE is seen hiking borrowing costs by at least a quarter point to 5.25%, which would be the highest level in more than 15 years and could go even higher at its regular meeting, according to analysts. British annual inflation remains close to 8%, far higher than in the Eurozone and United States. UK inflation is the highest among G7 nations. Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has set a target of reducing inflation to 5% by the end of 2023, ahead of a general election next year, which his Conservative Party is on course to lose. In a bid to cool prices, the BOE, led by Governor Andrew Bailey, began lifting its key interest rate from a record low of 0.1% at the end of 2021, when inflation started to creep higher as economies slowly emerged from lockdowns. At 5%, the bank's interest rate is at the highest level since the global financial crisis in 2008. Surging interest rates in the UK have sparked mortgage turmoil as commercial lenders lift their own borrowing costs on home loans, boosting their profits. Core inflation excludes energy and food prices. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Ryan Florentino for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Elon Musk-owned X is suing a nonprofit group in a United States federal court over reports that hate speech has flourished within the social media platform formerly known as Twitter. Angel Membrere reports.
A copy of the lawsuit shows that Elon Musk is accusing the Center for Countering Digital Hate, or CCDH, of generating flawed studies. Musk says these flawed studies have cost the tech firm tens of millions of dollars. Musk accuses CCDH of violating X's terms of service in the way it accessed data for its reports. X says CCDH improperly gained access to data so it could cherry-pick information to back reports showing the rebranded Twitter is rife with harmful content. CCDH's chief executive contends that Musk's legal move is an effort to silence critics that comes straight out of the authoritarian playbook. The chief stands by the nonprofit's research, saying it shows that hate and disinformation are spreading like wildfire at X. He says Musk will not bully them into silence. The suit was filed in San Francisco late Monday. Angel Membrere for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket delivers the Intelsat G37 communication satellite into orbit. This mission marks the sixth launch of the Falcon 9 first stage booster that flew the Crew 5 astronaut mission to the International Space Station. According to SpaceX, the Falcon 9 places the satellite into what they called as a geosynchronous transfer orbit. This is an elliptical orbit around 23,000 miles above before reaching the orbit that keeps spacecraft over the same location as the Earth. SpaceX already launched 251 missions, with the 51st mission recorded in 2023 so far. Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy are the current operational rocket in SpaceX's fleet.
Somalia's athletics head has been suspended after an untrained runner went viral for taking nearly 22 seconds to complete the 100-meter sprint at an international competition. Now revealed that Ali had no background in running or any other sport. Mohamud said he had suspended the Somali Athletics Federation chair and would take legal action over the incident. Meanwhile, the Association of Somalia Universities said that it had not sent runners to the competition. Minister of Youth and Sports Mohammed Bar Mohammed earlier apologized over the incident. South Korean girl group New Jeans' Get Up album debuts at #1 in the Billboard Hot 200. South Korean girl group New Jeans takes the first spot on Billboard 200 with their second extended play or EP Get Up album. The Barbie movie soundtrack followed them at #2, and classic rock band Greta Van Fleet nabs third spot with the song Starcatcher on reaching the top 10. New Jeans sets the record as the second Korean all-female group to top at #1 on Billboard 200 in less than a year, after Blackpink's Born Pink last September. They are the only all-female group to reach the top spot in the last 15 years. The second EP Get Up album earned 126,500 album units in the US with a demand of CD sales. Meanwhile, New Jeans' song track Super Shy takes the 48th spot on US Billboard Hot 100 songs before the album's release. Government officials are seeking support from Taylor Swift amidst the hotel workers' strike in California. Julianne Bunak has the scoop.
An open letter signed by dozens of state and local politicians of California was addressed to the singer-songwriter Taylor Swift, asking for cancellation of her Eras Tour shows at the SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. California's Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kolinakis, along with the other officials, made the plea, demanding the improvement on salary, healthcare benefits, higher pension contributions, and less strenuous workloads for hotel workers. The sold-out concerts of Swift are said to boost the region's profits, arguing that some properties are doubling and tripling what they charge because of her arrival. However, the singer's representatives have yet to respond on the email that seeks comments regarding the letter. Julian Bunag for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Not quite the weekend yet, so for your Thursday motivation, here's a quote from Rat Pack member and Mr. Show Business himself, Sammy Davis Jr. Real success is not on the stage, but off the stage as a human being and how you get along with your fellow men.
So on the way here today, I was actually listening to a podcast interviewing one of my favorite artists, and he just seemed so genuinely kind. It made me love him even more. And I think what I took away from that is that the glitz and glam is temporary, but what's important is how we treat one another.
I agree with you. And I see the social media platform as a stage in a sense.
Yes.
And just as people seem to be doing greatly there is really no way you'd know how they are doing off that stage.
Very true. So be sure to be kind to one another today and every day.
I agree.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
And I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.